Hi, this is Mrs. Smith, Cherokee Elementary, Alexandria, Louisiana. Today we're going to talk about the scientific method. The scientific method is an organized way to answer questions and solve problems. It's organized. That means it has certain steps that we have to follow. It answers questions and it solves problems. Scientists use it every day, and believe it or not, so do you. The first step of the scientific method is actually one that comes very naturally to you, observing question. About the time you were 2 years old, you started to ask hundreds of questions. Why? Why is the sky blue? Why is thunder so loud? Is God angry? Why does the dog lick me so much? Where does the water go when I empty the tub? You just ask question after question after question. Mom and Dad tried to answer your questions, but they got pretty tired of answering those hundreds of questions. So usually we get the message that asking questions isn't a good thing. Scientists never stop asking questions. And so that's what you have to start doing to be a scientist. So we're going to ask questions in the scientific method. You have to be curious about the world around you. You have to observe it using your 5 senses. Then you have to ask lots and lots of questions. And questions are okay in science. Then you have to choose one question in order to do the scientific method. That question is the one that you really, really want to know. It's the problem. You state the problem that you have or what your major question is. That's step 1. Step 2 is research. This is the step a lot of us like to skip. It's not as much fun as the experiment, I know, but it's very, very important. Research is where you try to find out if there's already an answer to your question. It's what do you know already? What do you observe with your senses? What can you read in books or on the internet? Or what can you infer from things that you have already seen? And we'll talk more about that later. You can even use people that you know, experts, to ask questions to try and get the answer to your problem. Now, in step 3, you're going to form a hypothesis. A hypothesis is an educated guess based on your research. That's why that research is so important. It's also based on what you observe or what you've inferred while you're doing that research. An hypothesis has to be testable. In order to do an experiment, it has to be something that you can test, and it has to be a possible answer to your question. The hypothesis is going to say, I think, because. What do you think will happen, and why do you think that's what's going to happen? What do you predict will happen? Step 4, test your hypothesis. This is the part you've been looking forward to. This is the experiment. We all love to do experiments in science. So we will test our hypothesis. You will be sure to list your materials, list your steps, and most importantly, you will make sure that this experiment is actually testing your hypothesis. You will collect the data as you do the experiment and do some observations. At the end, the experiment should show whether your hypothesis is correct or incorrect. Step 5, we're going to analyze the data that we collected during the experiment and form a conclusion from that data. We're going to talk about what happened in the experiment and what we learned in the experiment. We might put this data into tables or graphs or charts. We're going to have to be able to explain what does it mean and form a conclusion about what it means. We have to tell whether our hypothesis was correct or incorrect. And it's okay if it was incorrect. but we need to know based on our experiment. And that's what we do in step 5. Step 6, you're going to communicate your results. Communicate simply means that you're going to share what you have learned. In science class, we share our results in the interactive notebook. In your interactive notebook, you will put all of your lab sheets or activity sheets on your right side. And on the left side, you share what you learned. You're going to share it in your own words, and you're going to choose the method that you share those results. So we do that in science class. But scientists do it as well. That's what's in your science book. It's where scientists have shared what they've learned, and it's been put in a form that you can understand in your science book. Scientists also share it in newspapers and magazines. They also share it on the internet. They share it so that other scientists in the community can use this information and even take their experiments further. Before you answer your questions to show what you learned today, I want you to know that the scientific method isn't just a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 method. If your hypothesis is incorrect, you're going to have to go back to step 1. You're going to have to ask the question, why was it incorrect? And you're going to have to research to see if you can figure out why is it incorrect, and then form a new hypothesis and start all over again. The scientific method can also keep going when your hypothesis is correct, because it might make you think of another question. So the scientific method is actually a circle. Now, be sure to answer your questions so that you're prepared for class tomorrow.